Here's what you're missing over at patreon.com/Addressing Gettysburg.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And today, you know how we like to, one of the reasons you're a patron is because I'm giving you a little more than just typical Gettysburg stuff, right? And we want to try to get a better understanding of Gettysburg by understanding the context of Gettysburg, the Civil War as a whole. Or maybe we're trying to understand the Civil War as a whole through Gettysburg. I'm not really sure which way it goes. Maybe either way, maybe both ways, maybe everybody's different. It's not the point. The point is that we like to get people on who can talk about different aspects of Civil War life and maybe even just 19th century, middle 19th century American life. Today we have Reverend Dr. Nancy Hale, and we're going to talk about Civil War chaplains. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
Now, you, like me, you're a native of New Jersey.
Yes.
So, yeah, my condolences on that one. My sympathies.
No, I'm South Jersey, Matt.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Whole
people from
different
South
world.
Jersey like it there. Yeah. Well, I'm from North Jersey, so I couldn't get out fast enough. You're also a United Methodist pastor for 25 years. You've been. Let me ask you this. I was raised Catholic.
Uh-oh. That's okay.
Which is why I don't go to church. But what is the difference between Methodist and Methodism? What is it? Methodism?
Methodism. Yeah.
Methodism and Catholicism.
Well, it goes back, to put it in a nutshell, it goes all the way back to the Protestant Reformation. And basically, we have different understandings about things like communion, Holy Communion, baptism, the structure of the church. The Catholic Church is very hierarchical.
Yeah.
Yes.
So try saying that 3 times fast.
You've got the Pope, and then you've got cardinals.
Sure.
Methodist Church is more democratically organized,
okay,
where the lay people have a lot more say in the governance of the church. That's the main difference.
Do you have the equivalent of a pope or bishops or anything like that?
No, we have bishops. But none of them can speak on behalf of the entire church.
So they're what, regional, I guess? Or?
Regional, yes.
Yeah, okay. And, but then who do they answer to?
Each other. We have a council of bishops. But the ultimate authority in the United Methodist Church, the only ones that can speak for the church or make decisions of the church is what we call General Conference. And that is a global gathering of both lay people and clergy together who make the decision. So it's very democratic.
So, and what is the difference in opinion on or views on communion?
Well, the Roman Catholic Church believes that the bread and the wine are the actual body and blood of Christ, that they are transformed into his actual body in the act of the priest blessing the elements. We see it a little bit more symbolic. Okay.
Like you have your head in reality, basically, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah. I can say that as a former Catholic. Okay. And you're studying to be a guide.
I am, yes.
Are you looking forward to ever getting the chance if they ever offer it?
Very much so, because I've spent 25 years of my life teaching people about things that maybe they weren't aware of filtering big topics down into little chunks that people can understand. I mean, theology is a huge topic, but I've been helping people get it in little bits and pieces that they can understand and that might excite them to learn more. And that just fits in perfectly with the whole concept of being a guide.
Yeah, okay. And you're also a chaplain reenactor.
Yes, I am.
So were there women chaplains?
There was one. But she was never authorized. She was never offered a commission by Stanton, but she served in a volunteer capacity.
Okay. Do you know what her denomination was?
Oh, that's a good question. Her name was Ella Hobart, and she served the 1st Wisconsin Heavy Artillery Unit, but I honestly don't know what. Thank you. I need to go look that up.
There you go. All right. You've also led divine services on the battlefield at the amphitheater.
Yes.
I didn't know they did that. When do you do that?
This is during the summer. The Gettysburg Ministerium, which is a collection of different churches in Gettysburg, each Sunday morning at 8 o'clock throughout the summer, they offer these services at the amphitheater. And each week, a different church takes responsibility for that service. Labor Day weekend has traditionally been the United Methodists here in town. And a few years ago, I contacted my friend Rick Smith, the pastor of the church over there. I said, how would you like an authentic Civil War service offer? He loved it. So I think this will be my 4th or 5th year now that I'll be doing it this Labor Day.
Good. And then I don't know when this episode is going to come out, but in the July 2023 edition of Gettysburg Magazine, you have an article coming out on chaplains.
Yes.
And what's going to be the focus of that article?
Well, the first part of the article is just about chaplaincy in general, how it came to be, how it what chaplains were expected to do, how they were recruited, things like that. But then the last part of the article includes stories about chaplains who were here at Gettysburg and about what they experienced and about what they left as a witness.
Okay. And then finally, you've authored a book called Faith and Duty, which is a Civil War novel about chaplains.
It's about a fictional chaplain from upstate New York, where I was living at the time. And it's all about, it's really my story, because for years I have struggled to reconcile my faith that teaches me love your enemies, turn the other cheek, all that, with the knowledge that there is a sense of duty that sometimes leads you to do things that compromises your faith. And so that's what the novel is all about. The chaplain goes through the whole book wrestling to reconcile those two things. And
do you ever watch Yellowstone? Have you seen this show?
No, I haven't. I should.
Oh, it's rough. It's brutal.
Thanks for the warning.
It's brutal, but I'm in season 4 now, and I remember my sister bugged me for a year to start watching it, so I started watching it in February, and I remember saying to her a few weeks into it, she's like, "So what do you think of Yellowstone?" And I said, "Well, it's very well done." And, like each department in the production company is top notch. The riding makes me, I miss horseback riding. I want to get on a horse again. I miss it so much. It's been 20 years since I've ridden one. And I could never ride like these guys, but I would just love to be on a horse again. And, and the scenery is so beautiful, blah, 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 blah. The violence is so brutal and realistic. And I'm still trying to figure out who the hero is. Like, who is the good guy in this show? And finally, at the last couple episodes I watched, I'm starting to see that the Kevin Costner character, he's from the beginning that he's the hero, but he's kind of the anti-hero, but then as we get to know him more, we realize that the bad things he does are out of a sense of duty to his family, to his family history, to the land that he's on. The job to protect and propagate it has fallen on his shoulders. And so it's like this tremendous sense of duty that he has. And yet there is a line, because there's something his daughter does, and his daughter's always been like his bulldog. And she's helped him, and she's done a lot of awful things to their enemies. But she did something which she thought was ultimately going to hurt the enemy, but ended up using an innocent person to do it. And that innocent person faces life in jail at this part in the series, and he's not having it. And he says that was cruel. He goes, "We don't do that to people who are not our enemies. She was not our enemy."
Wow.
And so there is a line, even for someone who so far through this entire 4 seasons has been a bastard, But now, like, all of a sudden it's like, okay, he does have a code. Like, he has a sense of right and wrong and honor and all that stuff. And I get it now. What was the point of me going through that whole thing? Something you said reminded me of it.
The struggle between faith and duty.
Oh, yes. So...
Well, can I just say something about that? You don't come across that in the writings that the chaplains have left, even in letters, because chaplains at the time weren't about to admit that they were struggling, to reconcile faith, because they had to present for the soldiers this strong sense of faithfulness and duty. But I have come across a couple of writings from soldiers themselves who mentioned, if you don't mind me saying, there's a man named... I think his name was Benjamin Thompson. He was in the 111th New York. Okay. And he was out there on the skirmish line. That's our monument, or our logo there. I thought that looked familiar. He was out there on the skirmish line on July 2nd. And after the war, he wrote, line fighting is bad enough, but skirmishing is brutal. It's basically murder. You're looking.
Yeah,
you're
it's
aiming at one
one-on-one.
person. He said it's far too bloodthirsty work for a Christian gentleman.
Oh, yeah.
So you see examples of how some of these soldiers really struggled to reconcile what they had been told all their life about loving others and loving God, and then going out and aiming at and shooting their enemy.
Yeah, and there's a story. Oh, I can't remember the regiments. It's either the 11th New Jersey or is the 11th New Jersey near the Angle?
No, they were out on the Emmitsburg Road.
All right, who am I thinking? Well, it was one of the regiments. I don't remember if it was Connecticut or whoever. But it was like at the end of Pickett's charge, and again, I want to say it's the 11th Mississippi that's coming at them, or it could be the 26th North Carolina, whoever it was.
Yeah.
There's one guy who realizes he's the only guy that has made it to the wall from his company. And instead of shooting him down like a dog, someone extends his hand and says, "Come over to this side of the Lord," I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember who the regiments are now?
I'm pretty sure that would have been the 14th Connecticut. Don't
Yeah, that sounds more familiar. The first time I heard that story, it gave me such a chill, but then confused the hell out of me. And that's the thing about the Civil War, and probably every war, that always gets me when you read the accounts from these men, and on one page in their diary they could be talking about how they shot a Johnny, and they're proud of themselves, and the next one they're extending a Christian kindness to a Johnny who, for whatever reason, in this case, they're sparing his life. I mean, he's going to go be a prisoner, but they're sparing his life. He at least has a chance to live the rest of his life, his natural life. And then in other ways, you shoot a guy, you shot him, and then somehow you encounter him later on and give him water and aid and try to help him. To me, that is so weird that, you're trying to kill someone because they're going to try to kill you, right? But the minute someone's hit, we take care of him. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, you wouldn't have to take care of him if you didn't shoot him in the first place. You
have to wonder, though, if those soldiers who do reach out to their wounded enemy are trying to make amends, and so we're paying penance in some way for what they know they've done.
I'm sure.
So
there's probably some of that in there for sure. Yeah, it is strange though. But so chaplains. Mm-hmm. It goes back to in our country the Revolution.
Yes.
But it wasn't like an official.
No, back in the Revolutionary War times, chaplains, pastors from areas where men were going into the war would just decide to accompany the men into the battle scene. It was unofficial at first. There was no pay, no expectations, none of that. But as time went on, as the Army started to really develop, then they would recognize chaplains, and they set the pay. I think it was $20 a month, which was a pittance back then. But once the Revolutionary War came to an end, that kind of official Army acceptance of chaplains ended. At that time, there were only a few chaplains at scattered posts throughout the country, so there were no real official chaplains serving with the Army itself.
The Patriot, the movie The Patriot, they kind of touch on that there when they all go off and the chaplain kind of just takes off his collar and picks up a musket or something like that.
That was rare, but it was much more common. In fact, I was talking to my son on the way down here. He's a former Army EOD specialist. I was asking him tell me about modern-day chaplains. And, of course, modern-day chaplains are forbidden from ever picking up a weapon. They are non-combatants. The line was much blurrier during the Revolutionary and Civil War times, and there are stories of chaplains who became fighting chaplains who would pick up a musket and go, stand with the men on the line.
Interesting. So when the revolution is over, and you say there's a few chaplains scattered at different posts and everything like that, but for the most part, it's not a part of the Army. It doesn't really become a part of the Army until the Civil War, like an official part of the Army. That's
when chaplaincy is officially recognized and sanctioned by both the Army and by the government.
Why? Why at that point?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. First of all, the enormous size of the Army for the Civil War. And I've read letters from family members of soldiers that were written to newspapers speaking of the the desperate need to make sure that their boys, their sons, their neighbors had spiritual guidance while they were out there in the camps or on the battlefield, because it was very important that they be kept in that Christian mindset.
Yeah.
You know, because of course, as anyone would imagine, in an army camp, the temptations are great, you know, to stray and
Sure.
to get involved in questionable activities. So I think part of it was pressure from the public to make sure that their sons and brothers and whatever.
Listen to the rest of this interview and dozens like it. Support the show and get early access to special episodes, early and discounted ticket sales, and more. The second lieutenant level and above gets access to all monthly Patreon episodes. So please go to patreon.com/addressinggettysburg, choose a tier, and join. And I thank you in advance.